Hello and welcome back to the React to This podcast. I'm Marlena Shivo. This week, I'm doing the podcast from Florida, the land of Ron DeSantis. Trust me, I have a lot to say about Ron DeSantis. We'll get there in a minute. But first, I want to talk about a different governor, Kathy Hochul, governor of New York. Oh, Kathy Hochul. So she shows up at the wake of a slain NYPD officer, Jonathan Diller, and was turned away. That's embarrassing. You know, if there's one person I wouldn't want to be, it's Kathy Hochul. First, she gets the governorship by default, right? Then in 2022, during the gubernatorial election in New York, she won by the skin of her teeth against Lee Zeldin, who you would think it would have been a landslide in a blue state like New York, but no. And Lee Zeldin is a pro-lifer. He's that much of a conservative, and yet she still won by just a few percentage points, right? And at one point, it did look like Lee Zeldin was going to win, but that aside. So she goes to the wake of Officer Diller and is turned away. Mortifying. The video of her being turned away goes viral, right? So now everybody's talking about it. Forget the embarrassment, forget the viral video. Let's talk about what's underneath it. So this officer was killed during a routine traffic stop. He was killed by someone who was a repeat offender, someone who had 21 priors, 21 prior arrests. And this man was walking the streets, and now a police officer is dead as a result of his freedom. So why was he free? Let me guess. Could it be bail reform? Or bail reform? You can't take away bail reform altogether, but you're going to have to reform the reform. And then on top of it, guess who's inside the wake giving a speech? That's right, Donald Trump. Donald Trump was there, and Kathy Hochul was turned away. That Donald Trump, he really gets around, doesn't he? You blink and the guy's in another state. Meanwhile, he's due in court like every other minute. I don't know how he gets from winning a championship at his own golf course to making a video about Bibles, and then poof, he's in Massapequa at a wake. He's always in court, but he's always not in court. He has to have a stunt double. How can you be in court and not in court, and in Florida and in New York and in Georgia? How are you in all of these places? Donald Trump. I think you have a Trump double. I think that's what it is. As mentioned, I am in Florida this week. I have a laundry list of reasons why I will never move to Florida, even though I do like to visit Florida and have for several years. I know you think I'm going to start dogging Ron DeSantis because that's the trendy thing to do, but I'm not. I will talk about him, but first I want to talk about some of the other things that are wrong with Florida. Not to say that Ron DeSantis is something that's wrong with Florida. Alligators. No, thank you. I'm scared to death of the idea of an alligator ending up on my lawn. Okay. The heat, it's oppressive. Okay. It's great to come here during the month of March and April when the weather still doesn't know what it's going to do up north. But let me tell you something. When it gets in the 90s and it's like 3,000% humidity, you can keep Florida. I don't know how anybody breathes down here. And I see people in jeans. I see people in long sleeve shirts. And I start hyperventilating. I cannot handle the heat in Florida. And I don't want to hear the phrase, you get used to it. I can't get used to dripping sweat the second I walk out of my front door. Okay. I have had summers like that up north where a week-long heat wave hits and it feels like every day feels in the state of Florida for a good 6 months. And so that's a biggie. Pythons. How many stories have come out of Florida where there's a python that has crossed a highway and holding up traffic? I'm so grossed out by the creatures that live in Florida. And then there's the people. I have covered so many crimes in Florida that I've lost count. Back when I was with CNN, I was sent to really unsavory places to cover missing, murdered whoever's in Florida. And it is no joke. The beaches are great. You know, the west coast of Florida has some white sand beaches and beautiful water, and Miami's fun. And, you know, you can hop from populated city to populated city, but all in between, the swampy backwater Florida, you can keep it. Disney World. No, this is not a dig on Disney, the company. I just think that Disney in general it's just not my palate. It's not my palate. The crowds, the caliber of the crowds that go to Disney and Epcot, I'm so sorry. Adults who go to Epcot on a regular basis, if you're one of those adults who just goes to Epcot every year with other adults, can I just make a suggestion? Can you just save your money, skip a year, 2 years in Epcot, and actually go to the countries you're pretending to visit? You can go to Italy. You don't have to go to Epcot, Italy. Skip a few journeys to your pretend land where you think you're actually in Germany having a stein of beer. Look up, honey. You're in Florida. You are nowhere near Germany. You are nowhere near Italy. You are nowhere near Paris. Just go to Paris. Epcot is a small world after all. It's just a theme park. Epcot is Epcockamimi. If I never step foot in Disney World again, it'll be too soon. R.I.P. Disney. Now, I have to talk about Ron DeSantis. I don't know. The guy doesn't bother me that much. I mean, yeah, he's a little strange. He has a weird laugh. He smiles like he's a ventriloquist. But other than that, he kind of makes sense in a lot of ways. I mean, he's just signed a bill that would make putting wine in larger containers legal. The man wants to sell you more alcohol. He can't be all that bad, right? He's saying, no, we don't need to limit your wine bottle size. I'm going to make a bill that says you can have wine in a much bigger bottle. The thought of drinking warm red wine in hot, sunny Florida makes me want to gag. But hey, I appreciate the effort, Ron DeSantis. He also put forth an effort to ban social media for kids 16 and under, even though that got altered to 14 and under. I think he should be president just based on that. He sees the addiction that we all see as parents to these devices, kids walking from room to room with their iPads, not looking up. It's terrible. Now, that's just the internet. Forget it. He's talking about social media. I feel like kids shouldn't have any social media until they're 18. It's a problem. It's a problem for some adults, let alone kids. I think 14's too young. But hey, at least he's making an effort. You know what else he's doing? He's cleaning up the streets. Okay? There's all of these homeless people in all these different states that are just setting up camp, right? He is making it so that people can't do that anymore. He doesn't want the state of Florida looking like the city of San Francisco, where homeless people can just go anywhere and do anything. So he's on top of that, and then to double down on sort of something of the same vein, he's also cracking down on squatter rights. What genius came up with squatters' rights? But let me tell you, Ron DeSantis is putting an end to it in the state of Florida. So, we can trash Ron DeSantis all we want. You can call him a bigot. You can call him what? What are we calling him exactly? A conservative? Is that a bad thing? I mean, people are allowed to be conservatives. People are allowed to be liberals. They're allowed to be conservatives. So what's wrong with Ron DeSantis exactly? We think he's a bigot because why? Everyone wants to say Ron DeSantis is a bigot because of the quote unquote don't say gay bill, which, by the way, isn't what it's called. And everybody who calls it that knows it. It's called the parental rights bill. And it's about parents being able to take control of what their very young children are being taught in school, specifically of a sexual nature. And this had to do with young children. This was about elementary school aged kids and about certain books that were being allowed in school libraries that were absolutely 1000% inappropriate. And you'll never convince me that a book like Genderqueer should be in an elementary school. And I don't care if it's a K through 8 school. It doesn't belong there. So my condolences to anybody who thinks that it should be and feels slighted by the fact that it has been removed from certain libraries in certain schools. But so Ron DeSantis is on that train. Okay. Yeah, I can't get behind calling that guy a bigot for that. He's not anti-gay. He's anti-sex education for second graders. And guess what? So am I. Put third grade in there too. Oh, put fourth grade in there too. Okay. So you want to call Ron DeSantis a bigot because he doesn't want sex ed for elementary school kids. Well then, hey, sure, go for it. If that's what you think a bigot is. A guy trying to protect the sanctity of young minds. I don't know. I think part of me is kind of a Ron DeSantis fan, and I don't want to admit it for some reason. I think it's because of the way he smiles. He clenches his teeth together like he's a ventriloquist. Like he's trying not to move his lips. It's so awkward, Ron. Stop doing that. I mean, look at a couple videos on how people smile, for crying out loud. It's not that hard. Ron DeSantis is not the reason I wouldn't move to Florida. I'm just saying. But if he got rid of all the alligators, I might consider. If he got rid of all the alligators and he could find a way to install air conditioning outside, then I might move to Florida. Until those two things happen, Florida's a place I love to visit, but I'm sorry, I can't live here. Just can't do it.